But we really focus on three kinds of evaluation in positioning your church. One is statistical. Some people don't like to talk about statistics. I find them necessary. Every time I go to meet my doctor for an annual physical, before I ever see him, they draw blood work, they get all the information that they need to do, attains physically about me, so that whenever I go meet with the doctor, he can see a statistical analysis of my blood work and my cholesterol and all those things, so he can make an adequate diagnosis and tell me what I need to do. In fact, every year I go. That's how they discovered the blockage that I had about this time last year. And so as a result of that, they go through this process of diagnostics. Well, most of you have been down this journey as I go get all the blood work, and finally I get an appointment with the doctor, and I sit in the waiting room, and eventually someone comes to the waiting room and opens up the door and says, "The doctor will see you now." And I know they're lying. I know I'm not going to see the doctor now. I know I'm just going to be moving from the big waiting room to the little waiting room and wait for the doctor to show up. And after I get into that smaller waiting room, I know that the next thing that's going to happen is not going to be the doctor turning that doorknob and walking in and saying, "Hi, Terry, how are you?" I know before he ever walks in the door, I'm going to hear that folder that's on the outside of the door begin to ruffle with papers. He's going to open up my chart. He's going to read all my statistical blood work. He's going to reacquaint himself with my name and the names of my family members. So when he walks in, it's like we're long lost friends. And he says, "Hey, Terry, how are you?" And he begins to look over the blood work that's there. And then he begins to ask me some questions. He says, "Terry, I've got a few questions for you. Tell me about your eating habits. How you been eating?" And I said, "Well, Doc, I've been doing exactly what you've been telling me to do for years. I know what he wants to hear, so I'm going to tell him what he wants to hear." I said, "Doc, I live by that rule you taught me several years ago. Everything green and everything grilled. If it's not green and it's not grilled, I'm not eating it. I'm staying away from all the chocolate, all the ice cream, all the junk food. Green and grilled, that's my philosophy in life." And he looks at me with a little bit of concerned look, and he said, "Well, if that's true, we may have a problem here, because, that doesn't line up with what these statistics are telling me about your blood work over here. Let me ask you about your exercise regimen. How you been doing on your exercise?" And I know what he wants to hear, because I've been seeing him for years. So I say, "Doc, 3 to 5 times a week, 30 minutes on the treadmill, I'm walking, I'm running, I'm jogging. I'm doing everything you tell me, 3 to 5 times a week for 30 minutes. And he looks at me, he's really concerned. He said, "Well, Terry, if everything you're telling me is true and what I see in front of me is accurate, then we may have a problem. You may have a rapid growing tumor in your body that's giving these blood levels the indication that's in front of me." About that time, my wife walks in the door, and she sees the concerned look on the doctor and on my face. And she said, "Doc, what's wrong?" And he said, "Well, I'm looking at Terry's blood work and all the diagnostics that we have here, and I'm listening to what he tells me, and they don't match up. And if what he's telling me is true and this is accurate, he may have a rapid growing tumor in his body, and he may be in a life-threatening situation." She said, "Well, what did he tell you?" He said, "Well, I asked him what he's been eating, and he says everything green and everything grilled." She says, "Green and grilled? I can't get him to eat anything green, much less anything grilled. It's fried everything. Fried okra, fried chicken, chicken fried steak." In fact, he found a place, this is true, this Shorty Smalls right over here on Reno. They actually sell fried Twinkies. Great dessert, I tell you. If it's fried, I'm eating it. And he goes, "Well, that explains a whole lot about the blood work right there." Then he says, "Well, what about his exercise regimen? Is he doing his exercise 30 minutes a day, 3 to 5 times a week?" She goes, "Exercise? Are you kidding?" So we have a 2-story home, and our son's bedroom is upstairs. When my husband is in the living room watching TV and his tea glass gets too low, he picks up the cell phone and calls his son out of the upper floor and has him come down to the kitchen, down to the room, get his glass, fill his tea glass, and go back. Doc says that explains a whole lot right there. Now the numbers are beginning to make sense. You know why are statistics important? Because when we ask you, "How are things going?" you may tell us one thing, but the statistics don't line up. So what we have to do is we have to find out what is really happening to produce these particular results. The second area that we focus on is in the area of environment. There are 7 things we talk about in the book that describes the environment that you need to protect in order for you to have a growing, healthy environment for your church. Environments are important. My wife and I, when we got married, we, like most young couples, didn't have much money, and we were living in an apartment that we didn't have the ability to decorate in any way or have any of those kinds of nice things. And so my wife decided that the cheapest way she could decorate our place of living was with plants. And so we were in California, so Kmart was real popular there, and they had the garden center. And so she decided that every week when we got a paycheck, she was going to go buy a $2 or $3 or $5 plant, put it in the house, and she was just going to enhance our apartment living with the greenery factory. Well, by the time you do the plant of the week for about 52 weeks, you got a small safari in your house. But she was good. She had a green thumb. She could keep them all alive. But after we developed this, highly vegetative jungle environment in our home, her dad and mom became very ill, and she had to leave for an extended period of time. Before she left, she gave me those deadly final words that every wife gives to her husband: whatever you do, don't let my plants die. Now, she has the green thumb, I don't. But I still figured I was smarter than a plant. I could figure I could keep plants alive for a few weeks. She had taken a yellow tablet and she had written down instructions on how to take care of her plants while she was gone. But, I'm a man who reads directions. And so I didn't pay any attention to those yellow legal tablet with all those instructions. So the first week goes by and I begin to see the plants limp a little bit, and I begin to think to myself, what have I seen Robin do to keep plants alive? And I remember she had a little water pitcher underneath the sink, so I filled it up with water and I went around the house and I watered all the plants, and sure enough, the next day the leaves started perking up. And like any good man, when you find something that works, you just give it more of it. So I went around and watered all the plants again the second day and the third day and the fourth day. And by that time, the plants are getting too much water and the leaves are beginning to lilt again. So I'm too much of a man to look at the legal tab. So I call a friend and I say, this is what I've been doing. What am I doing wrong? And they said, oh, you've given them too much water. What you need to do now is move them over next to the window, open up the mini blinds slightly, let some sunlight come in. It'll dry them out. They'll perk right back up. So I did. I moved all the plants next to windows, opened up the mini blinds, gave them a little sunlight, and sure enough, things began to perk up again. And I was like any good man, if you do something and it works really well, you give it a whole lot more of it. So I took all of our plants and moved them out in the backyard in August in Fresno, California, in 100+ temperatures. And it's no surprise what began to happen. They got too much sunlight, they began to burn, all those kinds of things. I called my friend, I said, I did what you told me, I moved them in the backyard, even gave them a lot of sun. They said, you've done too much, bring them back in. And over the phone, they began to coach me about how much water to give, how much sunlight to give, how to give them a little food every now and then, and how to care for them. And then it dawned on me. My wife had entrusted me with a basically healthy set of plants. What I did to their environment affected their ability to be healthy. The same thing is true with us. I believe God entrusts us with basically what should be a healthy church. But what we do with the environment affects its ability to be healthy. So we've got to get the right environment mixture in order to have the right vibrancy for ministry to take place. And the last one is what we call infrastructure. These are 10 areas of life and organization inside the church that must be analyzed in order for you to determine how to best create a roadmap or a strategic plan for your church to break barriers and to be able to grow. Now, honestly, these are written out in our book. We also do personal consultings, and we walk with churches and help them write a one-year strategic plan, and I serve as a coach for 1 year. There's a brochure in the packet about that if you have something of interest to you. We've been working with Brother Donnie Knight over here in Shawnee, and he's seen significant impact in his ministry. You can talk to him if you wanted to find out how that works and the benefit that comes to him. Donnie, wave your hand in case somebody doesn't know you. There you go. And we've been blessed to work with him, and he's signed us up for a following year. It's not uncommon. Sometimes we come back and help them go to another level and break another barrier. We've worked with churches that were 15 to take them to 100 plus. We've worked with churches that were 200 to take them to 500. Our largest project was a church of helping them go from 2,000 to 3,000 to be able to support the building project that they needed to have. So we take them on all levels, on all scopes of sizes, but it's to help to be able to break that. But you've got to identify those 10 areas and begin to break those areas and see growth and vitality happen.